The Odyssey is the latest big screen epic from Christopher Nolan, arguably the most anticipated film of the year for many people, including myself. Not to mention the fact that this is, I think, the first mainstream film to be shot entirely on IMAX cameras. Certainly the first of his films, which at this point we know Chris is obsessed with. Yeah, a lot of hype leading into this film, following Oppenheimer, which I loved, and that was such a big cultural event. I think Oppenheimer's a masterpiece. And as a big Nolan fan, this gave me what I wanted. Not perfectly, I will say, but on the whole, I was satisfied. I was very much satisfied. You, on the other hand,
on this channel, if you guys have been following it, it's been no secret that I'm not a massive fan of Christopher Nolan. I respect him as a filmmaker, but his work has never been something that I've kind of related to emotionally. I've always found his work very cold and just difficult to work with, hard to follow. And yeah, I mean, this film just follows suit. Look, I know that Christopher Nolan is great, all right? I'm not a fucking idiot. I know that he's great. I know he's a very talented guy.
I mean, we are so lucky to have Chris Nolan.
Yeah.
Like, being able to do what he does, being given the budget that he has.
I feel like this is a new fucking Christopher Nolan movie. Let's put myself, in the theater, best seat, the IMAX situation. Let's go for it. Let's see. Let's give it its all. Give it a chance. And I just came out of it, man. And I just, Jesus Christ, man. This movie experience, for me personally, it was just like a massive endurance test. Not like there's not things to appreciate about it, but it's just like, for me, his directing style in particular is so far removed from what I think cinema is all about. And I know that's so controversial. Like, I know that will be pissing so many people off. And you probably as well.
In a way, not that it pisses me off,
Yeah.
but I think that is kind of Nolan's superpower. And, normally, like, maximalism can go either one way, where it can be pretentious.
Yeah.
And I know you happen to think that sometimes his work can feel pretentious. I don't think that.
Right.
I feel like this is the right kind of maximalism where you have a guy who is so passionate about cinema, about the medium of film. I can feel that in every fucking frame of this film, of Tenet, which is, I think one of his most underrated. Interstellar, The Dark Knight. This guy just loves cinema. And the fact that he has this canvas and he's going, right, what I'm going to do, whilst I have these resources, whilst I have the budget, I'm going to make the most bold, audacious thing possible just because I want to.
Yeah.
But do it in a very considered, very thoughtful way.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of the filmmaking. I just love that. That's why I think maximalism that's what I love about him, his style.
No,
but I get it. It's not for everyone.
No, it's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
I actually do feel like a lot of his casting decisions as well are questionable. A lot of people have made these observations. Just particularly the fact that it's a Greek story and hardly any Greek person is casted. That's something to be questioned,
Yeah, well, there'll be questions till the end of time. But at the end of the day, the Odyssey is 3,000 years old. It's 3,000-year-old story. This is his interpretation. It's an adaptation. That's the point of an adaptation.
Yeah, it's just funny that adaptation turned out having fucking Tom Holland and Zendaya in the same place. The same thing with like Zendaya. I'm getting a bit of Zendaya fatigue. Like, I don't know.
After the drama, man, really. I thought,
yeah, she's just
drama,
everywhere, man. She's fucking everywhere. Like, the same time, they're always popping up at these random. Look, it's not like Zendaya is bad actress or anything.
Not at all, no.
But at the same time, it's just, you can't help but kind of get that kind of like, oh, here she is again.
I mean, before I gush over it, I will maybe get some of the things that I wasn't as mad about, like, out of the way. Tom Holland, namely, I don't think he's bad. Yeah. But compared to everyone else, particularly Matt Damon, who I'll get onto, I thought Matt Damon always kills it. I thought it was like Odysseus. He was the standout for me. And I think even if by design, Tom Holland as Telemachus is meant to be kind of a blank canvas and a nothing character, I just don't know, man. With Tom Holland, he has been a good Spider-Man, but I still have yet to see him really grab me. I mean, Devil All the Time is okay, but in this film, he kind of, like, when you put him next to these heavy hitters like Robert Pattinson, Tom Holland just felt lacking for me. Yeah. He didn't ruin the film for me, but it was one performance where I was like, yeah, no, he just stuck out for me.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing I felt about Zendaya, really. Both of them together. It's just kind of like, casting again, kind of like who is popular at the time. Like, it's almost like someone has just decided that these two people just need to be in every fucking movie at the moment. But is it really the best person for the job? Yeah, it's a really expansive and impressive cast, but at the same time, to me, it's not impressive, really. I mean, there are just there are questionable casting choices here that I don't really want to dive deeply into, but people have questioned it as woke and all that stuff. And you can give some credence to those observations. There are parts of it that I just felt like you're feeding into a particular ideology. The same thing when it came to the script. Like, there is an undertone of all of the characters being kind of feminized. The original story was a very supposedly hyper masculine story about, dominant men. And it seems as though the script has been rebalanced in that sense, that the women are strong, powerful women and the men are strong, powerful men, and there's like a balance there. I feel like he's kind of redressing that, really.
I mean, but do you have a problem with that personally?
Yeah, I do.
Did that take you out of the story?
Yeah.
I don't know, but actually, I think it could probably go the other way, because often Nolan has been criticized for the way he writes female characters. And I've already seen a number of think pieces, particularly with like Anne Hathaway's Penelope, that it's just like it's par for the course with Christopher Nolan.
What do you mean par for the course?
No, in terms of how he writes female characters, because she is very much, I'd say she has agency in a way.
Yeah.
I guess that, she's a no-nonsense woman.
Right.
But she is just there waiting for like, Odysseus to come home.
Yes, but the point was that the original story was more hyper-masculine. But I feel like that's kind of like a contemporary interpretation of the story. I do actually feel like the original story, from what I've heard, and massive interpretations have basically come to the consensus that really it is a story that does fundamentally focus on the power of the feminine side of things, the feminine perspective. After all, what are men working for, if not for the sake of women and coming home to that, and I think this story, I don't know, the way that it kind of redresses that issue, it's kind of just like all these little changes, it feels like just leave it the hell alone. There's a reason why this story is so foundational and still remembered 3,000 years later.
Like for all stories.
Exactly.
Like, it is the story.
Why do you need to make these little changes to make it like more socially acceptable? Just be bolder and just let the story play out. I don't know why all of these directors come in and they just feel like they need to make these fucking corporate mandated decisions. Be like, oh, we need to make these casting decisions to kind of redress that thing.
But look, and maybe this is the case of me being a bit of a Nolan shill. I don't think that's the case. If anything, he's the one director where he can just kind of, maybe in your opinion to his detriment, can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
Like, I do feel like whatever choices he's making, he's just doing it because he wants to make them, and that's why I admire about him.
Well, maybe
he's one of the few directors in Hollywood who actually has that carte blanche.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish it'd work. I wish his work would translate in that regard.
Right.
I feel like I feel like it doesn't really show that. Like, I don't want to give across that like this is something that I'm outraged by, but it's something that always kind of irks me and annoys me when it comes to such a foundational and important story as this. I just feel like what is this? This is past the test of time for thousands of years.
Yeah.
This is a fucking...
this is literally sacred text when it comes to, like, storytelling.
This is one of the best fucking pieces of Western literature, and you're fucking, like, just leave it alone!
I didn't realize you were secretly, like, an English, like... literature like scholar. Wow, man. You think even having Travis Scott at the beginning was...
Why the fuck was Travis Scott there?
Because he did the music in tenor and he's Nolan's boy. Like, for real? Like, I'm not even joking. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I don't even think
I like the opening.
There's nothing political about that. No. But at the same time, it's like, was that guy the best actor for that job? No, it's Travis Scott. Why the fuck why don't you just hire great actors? It just pisses me off. The fact, like, it's always the case that, like, you get to a point where you're a director and you can do what the hell you want. And I think you start to take the piss a little bit. It's like a kind of exercise in hubris that you can just kind of do what you want. And I was like, I'm going to bring in Travis Scott as, like, this cameo. It just annoys me. And then you get these film fans that are so obsessed with Christopher Nolan, think, like, every single decision he makes for a movie is so purposeful and meaningful. It's like, no.
Okay, but before I get to my positives, give me some of your positives.
Okay, fine.
I've got to hear some of them.
This is a positive and a negative at the same time, because I do think the music is massively overused in this movie. But at the same time, Ludwig Göransson's score...
I think he's like one of the best composers at the moment. He will go down. He's already going down in history.
He's absolutely excellent.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's great. In particular, just like the scenes where they're stuck in the Trojan horse inside and you have that kind of really awesome and unique music playing in the background. I don't even know how to describe that. I was just like, wow, this is great. This really is giving the movie a really distinct identity.
Yeah, it's very like quite otherworldly and
absolutely, yeah.
ethereal. I mean, and that's kind of what he wanted as well. He was like, I want you to ditch contemporary orchestra and just use the instruments that they use in the past, which I think is fucking cool.
But at the same time, I do feel like the music was kind of overused,
which is often a criticism. Sorry to bring it back to criticisms, but I know you were not a fan. You had a problem with the sound mix, which is often, Chris Nolan. That's I think you have a problem with.
Yeah, no, I do have a massive thing with that.
It's been
it's the sound design. I felt like, look, I gave this movie a really good chance. I sat and watched it in the best possible way. Watching some of these scenes in IMAX was
incredible.
In particular, the giant scene. What's his name? The Cyclops scene.
Yeah,
that was just a massive standout. I mean, that scene in isolation to me was probably the best moment in the movie, just in regards to just how breathtaking it was watching that in IMAX. Yeah. I mean, just looking at how far we've come in compared to like the Troy movie, for example.
Oh god, I mean, I never even saw that. Was that pretty terrible?
No, it wasn't. It's just like it's comparing how effective these scenes can be, and something I really do admire about Christopher Nolan is how he does really pay due respect to that sense of giving a scene, no matter how kind of fantastical it is, making sure that you can present it in the most realistic and grounded way possible.
Absolutely.
And I think that scene with the Cyclops,
it was incredible.
I mean, I was sitting in the cinema thinking, wow, I am like with this fucking Cyclops at the moment. I am stuck in this cave. Yeah. And something I really enjoyed about the sound design was hearing like his screeches and hearing the echoes around you and stuff like that. That was great, man. You can't really kind of deny that. You know, there are parts in this movie that, no matter how flawed, I think when it all comes together as a package, it is. When you take these certain scenes in isolation, you can't help but respect and admire the craft involved in creating that experience.
Yeah, and to state this like a pretentious film bro, seeing like the Cyclops sequence, that is cinema.
Oh,
that really is pure cinema.
No, definitely, yeah. And you just compare it to the movies that have come before in presenting the scene in that way. I mean, that is a case where like the director, he's got a shitload of money, he's got so many resources to do what the fuck he wants, and he's using those resources in the right way to just create an amazing and one of those experiences that throughout the rest of the year, I feel like that's one scene that people will remember as like a standout.
Yeah, no, I mean, alongside the Indy Navarrete being that'll probably be the scene of the year. And another thing I loved about that scene, actually, with a lot of this film, it continues to prove that if Chris Nolan tackled a horror film, my God.
Oh yeah, it's scary, very scary.
And he did that perfectly, because there's a lot of horror in the Odyssey.
Yeah.
And especially the Cyclops scene, I was like, man, you need to do a straight horror film.
He'd kind of been inspired by works from Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Of giving monsters that kind of personality and kind of that relatability. Like, they're not just monsters that you have to, run away from. They're kind of, you can look at them and you can empathize that they're as scary as they are. You can see that they're just kind of creatures at the end of the day, which is something else that I admired. So there's a plenty to enjoy about this movie, but I think as a final package, it's just, honestly, I actually don't think that I could sit through it again.
Wow.
It's so overly long and loud. Like, every scene is packed with like just constant, like, either like really hard, strong, like bass music, or just even when people are talking, it never ever stops. There's never a moment when a character just is talking and the music just slows the fuck down, gives the scene a chance to breathe. It's just constant, relentless music. So I think it kind of really retracts from the experience. It's such a personal thing, isn't it? Because someone else could just love the music and think it really kind of emphasizes the scene
And then also the fact that it is and it doesn't mean one has to like it. I happen to like it,
Yeah.
And it very much is a stylistic choice at this point. The fact that he doesn't do any ADR, the fact that the music is so loud, it is, part of, I guess, the Chris Nolan style.
Right.
But then it's a case of do you like that? Do you want that? At this point in his career, he's not going to change that for anyone. That is his style.
I know, but I just feel like some fans, I feel like I've seen it where sometimes they're just a little bit forgiving of things that they know are like actually they don't like, but because they think that it's purposeful and deliberate, they kind of let it off and say like, well, because it's what he wants to do. It's like, yeah, but that, to me, that's an error. Like when I literally can't hear what the person is saying in a scene because the music is too loud. I'm sorry, I don't care how deliberate that is. I want to fucking hear what the character is saying. But I don't know if you experienced the same thing. Did you?
Maybe 10%.
Yeah.
I know, which you were shocked by. I think 10% of the time I can make out with.
Honestly, literally most of the time I could not hear a word.
Yeah, and look, this is not even me arguing whether or not it's purposeful. It's just that like I know I can kind of get down with it because what I admire about his filmmaking is that he really like just puts you in it. I mean, there's maybe a more eloquent way of saying that.
Yeah.
And I think the music is a big part of that. Like for example, in Inception, it's been fucking memed to death. Like, you know, where you have all this exposition, you have Hans Zimmer blaring in the background. They're talking about this and the camera's spinning, going dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Rightly so, people can make fun of that. But I love it because I feel like I'm with the characters. I am experiencing this as they are.
Right.
So that's why I appreciate
it's funny because I have the complete opposite
Yeah.
effect. Because I'm like, I would rather just hear like nothing because then I feel like I'm there with the characters because the characters don't hear music around them. Do you know what I mean? So it's just that's kind of like it's just a personal taste kind of thing. I do in particular have always had a real like pet peeve with that thing where like you have overbearing music that is kind of just used whenever the fuck it wants.
But like, with the speaking of the characters, did you like any of the performances?
Yeah, I feel like for the script and what it was set out to do, I feel like everyone did it really well. I mean, Matt Damon, of course.
Oh, he killed it, man.
He killed it, absolutely did.
Killed it.
I don't feel like his character was interesting to me personally. I found the journey that he was taking quite interesting, and there were particular scenes where like you hear the thunder and the rain, and the camera is kind of shaking around and stuff. There are moments like that where you're like, wow, this is really immersive. I don't feel like I can see the CGI. I don't feel like I'm on a soundstage at all.
Well, of course, you wouldn't be on a soundstage.
Yeah, absolutely,
Chris Nolan would have a heart attack if you said soundstage.
I feel like that's the one thing that people absolutely admire about him is because they know that when they go to the cinema, they're actually watching
it's there.
it.
Everything
like the whirlpool thing. That wasn't like a
it's
CGI.
Crazy.
It was real, and that is a massive thing to admire, But I think when it actually comes to the storytelling, I don't think that this movie did a particularly good job of executing the story in a way for like people who are kind of newcomers to the story, who don't know anything about the original story. And it kind of explaining it like to people who have no idea what it's about.
I mean, look, I'm not saying like I was overly familiar with the story, but a couple of like, some of the Greek myths I had like a little bit of prior knowledge of. Yeah. So I kind of got a kick out of that. And actually, like I was saying earlier, the Telemachus storyline, that stuff didn't work for me, even if it was by design. Right. Mainly because of Tom Holland. I just think he was fine. Yeah. And when you're fine in a Christopher Nolan film, that's kind of like that could be the problem. It wasn't terrible. But I weirdly, and it's a more personal thing, I actually got quite a lot out of following Odysseus and his men. And I think, a lot of that also has to do with the technical elements, which is funny because, it's a case of you where they were a distraction. Yeah. But for me, I loved just the fact that they kind of jumped from side quest to side quest, seeing what these men had to go through, regardless of whether they're likable or not, and the toll that it had on him. And, what that kind of, what it stood for in terms of, I guess, his own, journey. Yeah. I was quite enthralled by that, but it's a very personal thing.
Yeah. What did you think of, let's say the first kind of 45 minutes? Because I felt like as soon as it started, there was a real lack of, cohesion and direction. I felt like even just the way it was edited, it was really meandering and kind of flipping back and forth between people, and it was doing a lot of kind of setting up the world and setting up the characters.
Which naturally you have to.
Yeah, but there was this is something that I really don't like about him. He never kind of does a scene that's just kind of in isolation that kind of really plants its feet within the movie and takes its time. There's like no matter where you are within the movie, it will always be followed eventually by another scene, if that makes sense. Like it's very much the one thing after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next, which for me, it felt like I struggled personally to find a moment that really let me kind of sink into these characters.
Right.
The Cyclops scene was a scene
excellent
in isolation, where
so
I feel like
excellent.
that it was kind of with quite bare bones in terms of the music as well, which I think is another reason why I really enjoyed that.
I would say for the most part, I liked the first 5 minutes. I liked parts of it. I mean, the bits that I enjoyed the most was when you're there. I mean, I love the scenes where you're at the palace.
Yeah.
And you're there with Robert Pattinson and all the suitors, and you're introduced to like John Leguizamo and all the blind guy. I really did enjoy that. But I guess it wasn't perfect, slightly sluggish, but not bad. Not bad for me.
What did you feel about, like, obviously you found like his journey and his character really interesting, but the original story was very much about how Odysseus was. He was far from a perfect character. He was a very flawed person. He was very cunning and kind of conniving and deceptive, and kind of, he would lie to kind of get what he wanted. And I feel like this movie didn't do a good job of making me question that. I never felt like this character was flawed, really. I never felt like I was contending with who he was and going back and forth.
But do you not think he had quite a bit of hubris? Like, for example, when he like brought his men into like certain like, death without telling them. I think that was maybe. I mean, so you felt it wasn't fully explored as much as it.
I feel like the original story is so interested in making you question those themes and those things about the character. I feel like this movie is more surface level, action packed. Let's follow this kind of real amazing story, but let's not dive deep into the themes enough to kind of get the audience really questioning it. It's relying on the fact that we all know this story, we're all aware of what it all means. And there's something I really don't like about that. I feel like the movie itself should be in isolation, a movie that you could take all of the themes itself and kind of absorb it. Not all of it. I mean, considering it's a fucking massive set of books. It's a massive poem.
It's a long ass.
I'm not expecting it to hit every fucking narrative beat. Yeah.
But weirdly, I actually, like, having sat on it, I actually have found quite a meta angle with this.
Okay.
And tell me if you think this sounds a bit bonkers.
Yeah.
That I do think, in a very bizarre way, it is Christopher Nolan reckoning with the nature of his work, because as a filmmaker, that it's a very all-consuming job. Especially if you work in Hollywood, you work on these big films, you work on them for like 3 years. It takes you away from family a lot. And, time is always a constant theme in his movies. And I think he has mentioned in interviews, he often thinks about the nature of lost time. Yeah. I do think in a very weird way, that's one of the things it's exploring.
Right.
Like, the fact that Odysseus goes on this Odyssey.
Yeah.
This long-ass journey for God knows how many years. It's like Nolan reckoning with the fact that, like, okay, due to the nature of what I do, I go on this adventure. Filmmaking is an adventure.
Yeah.
Right? I have lost time. What does that mean? But
maybe you're right, man. Maybe you're right.
I really did get that, and that's one of the reasons why I can appreciate films. There's always some interesting angle to be found.
I feel like you're just drinking the Nolan sauce. Man. You're drunk on this guy,
the
man.
Kool-Aid.
Well, so you think that it's a metaphor for Nolan himself?
It could be. It very much could be. No, mate, no. I fucking saw that a bit with Oppenheimer as well.
Really?
Yeah. Honestly.
Wow.
I mean, even with Inception is literally, you could say it's about the making a film.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I just don't see it, man.
You don't see it?
I don't see it, man. I really don't see it. And I'm not saying I'm right. I wish I did.
I guess neither am I.
Yeah. But it's true. It's like, wow, like people are really digging deep into this guy and seeing such brilliance. I do not see it, man. I really don't see it, no matter how deep I look.
But no, look, to be fair, again, it is not my favorite. Like, for one, even though I have found interesting angles within the story that I find like interesting, like artistically, I don't think it hits me emotionally like Interstellar or Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Like I connect, like especially Oppenheimer. Like obviously, I mean, maybe that helps that is like, you know, a period in history that we're still dealing with the aftermath of. But there's a lot of emotion I found in Oppenheimer rewatching it.
Yeah.
Like him having to reckon with like what he fucking creates and how that's just changed the world. I took a lot from that.
It's definitely more resonant.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Sure.
And with Interstellar. So we'll say, like, in that regard, it's still in the top for me, just in terms of how bold the filmmaking is. Kind of like a Tenet. But it's not going to be my favorite.
Do you feel like the Odyssey is a little bit more kind of spectacle over story, or do you feel like it's quite balanced in that regard? Because that's the main thing that I struggle with Nolan in general, is that I always feel like the spectacle takes center stage and the plot is kind of abandoned, and so is the character dynamics and the kind of the character development. I feel like never in any moment let me just say, never in any moment do I ever feel like I'm watching a real human being.
Right.
And I feel like that is due to how the characters are written as well. They speak in a very Nolan-esque kind of way that I just cannot get with.
That's actually interesting because, you know, with this film, he got a lot of stick for the fact that he used like modern vernacular and dialogue. Like the fact that Tom Holland says, "My dad's coming home." You know, people really don't like that. And he actually did it. Well, this is what he said, like to make the story more like relatable, palatable and realistic.
Yeah, but there's a difference between.
But you still felt they spoke like Nolan characters.
No, but there's a difference between making it contemporary and making it realistic. I have no problem if characters speak in respect to the time that they're set in.
Yeah,
you know, I fucking admire those movies that are so bold to do that. I feel like maybe that was the mistake that he made, was he was trying to tread that fine line between being more contemporary and also following the thread of the original. You can't really please everyone in that respect.
Of course not.
Either you do one side or you do the other. And I just felt like it came out, the dialogue came out in a way where I was just like, these are just not real people speaking. I don't know why they're speaking like that. Maybe 3,000 years ago, people did speak like that. I have no fucking idea. But it didn't seem like it. It felt like it was a script. It just didn't resonate with me at all. And I do feel like it was massively because, I don't know, kind of the more nuanced side of this story was kind of stripped and took a backstage in respect to even just like the humor of it. I mean, if you consider movies kind of like Barry Lyndon, the story of following his journey, it's very humorous in respect to kind of like, you know, he's such a cynical character. He becomes such a deceitful prick, you know, on this journey. And that he finds himself in these situations where, you know, he's bullshitting people, and you can find the humor in those scenes, and the dialogue is so effortlessly beautiful in that respect. And that was a major thread that was in the original story of the Odyssey. This movie is one of the most humorless movies I've ever watched in my life. There's not a single moment where there is even an ounce of humor. And I don't know, there's just part of that for me that I feel like is just massively, I don't know, it's really overbearing for me. I don't know why. Like sometimes you can watch a movie and it's like, it's not intended to make you laugh, and that's fine.
Or you don't need it.
But it's not necessarily humor, but it's just like a sense of levity and not taking itself too seriously. I feel like this movie massively takes itself too seriously.
I mean, one could say that with respect to him, even as a shill, that maybe is the Nolan way. It's very, you know, a lot of big speeches, very epic, very grandiose, very maximalist. Yeah. But, you know, I guess at the same time, with the Odyssey, maybe not as much dry humor. And actually, that is one thing I don't think he gets credit for, because especially in Tenet and Oppenheimer, there are little great, like, tiny bits of comedy. You know, so I think he's actually quite good at that. But maybe not in this film. And to go back to your point of whether it married the emotion with the spectacle, I feel like the attempt is still there and he does it somewhat. I mean, but that's mostly coming from, you know, what I got out of it, my personal, you know, I guess, interpretation and whatnot. But compared to an Interstellar, a Prestige, or an Oppenheimer, no, probably not as successfully. Again, but then this is why, in a weird way, I admire it. It's such an odd, it's like a positive caveat in a weird way. It's kind of like Tenet as well, where this film is very experiential rather than emotional.
I heard that he wrote the dialogue to kind of propel you emotionally rather than intellectually. He's made quite.
No, but that's what I was talking about before, with like him modernizing it.
Yeah, I guess so. But
I mean, I guess it did that for me. Maybe not in the way he intended. I feel like it was maybe meant to do so with Tom Holland's character.
Right.
But I found it more with Matt Damon's character and his
Yeah.
journey. So I feel like maybe he did propel me in a weird way emotionally.
How
Maybe
did you
not in the
feel
way-
when the movie finished? Did you feel in any way, or did you feel kind of just like blown away by the spectacle, or were you actually, were you taken aback by some food for thought to think about?
I think it was a bit of both because this film is such an experience. It's so experiential. But then I also was sat thinking, what else can I take from this? And I guess that came later rather than immediately. But it was kind of a bit of both. In a way.
I don't know. Yeah, there are some themes where in the original story it's kind of like the PTSD. I suppose it tackled that slightly. The idea of being, too arrogant in yourself and having this hubris.
Yeah,
You're a bit guilty for the things that you've done.
I mean, did you not feel like that was explored like really well? Which is actually another standout scene when they're on the beach and then like Elliot Page comes out of the sand and this army of the dead. Because I felt that's the scene where what you're talking about is like is he?
No, but this is the problem. I'm never convinced by anyone in his movies. I'm never convinced by who I'm listening to, like whether it's Elliot Page or Matt Damon or Zendaya or whoever. Like whoever I'm watching on screen, I'm like, you're not a real person. You're so far removed from a real human being. I don't relate to what you're saying. I feel like you're just spouting out like this kind of pretentious dialogue that is just it's just kind of flat and lifeless to me. And it's so beautiful the way it's presented. And there's something that I really like is the lighting in this movie is that it's not overly kind of like, it's not overly flashy and bold and all that respect.
I mean, well, that just goes back to the cinematography.
Of course,
like he's worked with like Hoyt van Hoytema since Dunkirk, I want to say. Like all their films from then onwards, like Tenet, Oppenheimer, The Odyssey. I love the way it's presented. It's just so gorgeous.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
It's like a fucking warm blue. It's like an ocean.
I feel like there was even a lack of violence. I wanted to see more violence in the fight scenes. I felt like it was quite held back in respect to that. I feel like it was quite, like there wasn't much blood on screen. It would have been
maybe
nice.
not blood, but brutality. Like when they fight were they giants? The giants.
Kind of, yeah.
Did you not find that was brutal? I found myself squirming at that scene. How brutal it was.
No, it didn't feel like any.
Interesting.
It didn't feel like any of the impacts were really impactful.
Really?
It felt like because I didn't see any blood. I didn't see anyone like proper getting sliced up or someone's head getting twisted or something
but not
like
that you
that.
necessarily need that, though. I do understand. This story is meant to be like the most perilous journey.
I know, but I feel like it would have been such an epic choice to make to just be so relentless in that regard and just be like, you know what, I'm going to present this as fucking violent as I can.
No, but then
I don't know.
But then I like that he leaned into the horror elements. Though maybe he like you said, discount like the side of leaning into the violence.
Yeah.
But I thought the horror was so effective. Like particularly, I don't know how we haven't talked about the Samantha Morton scene with the witch. That's one of my favorite scenes where she turns the men into pigs.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I was on the edge of my seat throughout that scene. Her performance, the visual effects, which I can imagine that's all like practical prosthetics, kind of like, kind of harkening back to like an American Werewolf in London, all those great like 80s horror films.
Yeah.
I love that scene. Next to the Cyclops scene, that is the scene for me.
Yeah, I mean, that was a moment where it was like, okay, it's taken an interesting turn in regards to kind of like it's being a little bit more kind of like dreamlike.
Like a fable, like a fairy tale.
Yeah, and that was a moment where I was like, okay, it's leaning into kind of like the more strongest parts of this movie. Is that, it is meandering and it is kind of flitting between things and stuff. And the fact that it is really indulging in this scene where it is kind of so bonkers and crazy and, kind of really dreamlike and nightmarish at the same time. I feel like it that was a real strong point. I do agree with that. Yeah, massively. And her performance was great. Yeah. And I do like the resemblance of like, what does that mean? Men like that we're all just pigs at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of harkening back even like to Pinocchio, for God's sake. When they go to Pleasure Island, they're turned into donkeys.
Oh yeah,
and that's another reason why I think I enjoyed this film because I'm quite interested in stories that kind of embed themselves in mythology, exploring mythology, questioning mythology, and when you're adapting a 3,000-year-old story that has inspired every story, you're going to pull from a lot. So I did really like, especially scenes like that. I was like, yeah, that's why I appreciate this.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the same. I absolutely, 100%. There's a reason why these stories stick around with us because they're unbelievably memorable. So yeah, it's a weird one. I do feel like I am just that kind of person that is very kind of immune to drinking the Nolan sauce, as you'd say.
Yeah, but you're not going to let Chris cook.
I don't know. Maybe one day. I don't know.
cook,
Maybe
man.
I need
Come
to
on.
watch Interstellar.
You do.
I feel like
Indeed.
if I hate Interstellar, I don't even want to.
Yeah, then I think
don't
that
even-
there is genuinely no hope for you if you do not get something out of Interstellar, I will say.
I feel like I just won't even review it because of the hate that I'll get. Because that is just such a beloved fucking movie. And yeah, maybe there's something wrong with me. I have no idea, but I do feel like that there's at least one person out there who kind of like does feel what I'm feeling. I'm sure most people agree with you, and that's fine. That's fine. All the more power to you. I wish I fucking enjoyed this movie. Do you know what I mean? I wish I didn't sit in that fucking cinema bored out of my mind. Like for the most part, I was.
You wish
honestly,
you weren't like that one guy, because I guess there is going to be that one guy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't get his films? I can look. I'm maybe the few of the Nolan shills who can acknowledge that. No one is wrong for not liking his films. I do get it. They're not for everyone.